So leading companies are embracing artificial intelligence to perform repeatable, redundant tasks and to process large amount of data, not to avoid human interactions but to enrich it. To knowledge us more about this, we have our speaker, Ms. Samantha Stone, founder and SMO, who guides us on authenticity in the age of automation and artificial intelligence. Samantha Stone, author of Unleash Possible, a marketing playbook that drives sales, is a revenue catalyst who helps unleash the possible in organizations that have complex selling process. She's a fast growth marketing junkie, researcher, speaker, consultant, and a person or coach who has also managed to find time to raise 4 boys with her husband David. Throughout her career, she has launched go-to-market initiatives and lead marketing strategies for award-winning high-growth companies including Netezza, SAP, Ascential Software and Powersoft. In 2012, she founded the Marketing Advisory Network to help savvy business leaders unleash the possible with their enterprises. So yes, gentlemen, now we are having speaker Miss Samantha Stone to enlighten us on authenticity in the age of automation and artificial intelligence. So the platform is all yours, Miss Samantha. So you can see Miss Samantha over here in the conference joining us.
This is great. Thank you for
Hi, Miss Samantha. So how you do?
Excellent. Well, we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, and I think becoming increasingly more important as we look forward in our marketing. It's important today, and it will only become more important as we look forward. But before we talk about artificial intelligence and all the exciting things that we have to look forward to, I want to tell you a little bit of a story about something that happened to me recently. So you're seeing a picture of a hotel on your screen. This happens to be a Marriott outside Philadelphia, and it's a perfectly good Marriott. It's clean, it's functional. The reason I stay at this Marriott is because I have a client who has a corporate account there, and they have a shuttle to my client's office. So it's very convenient and it's easy. But I've never left a review of this Marriott's website. I've never talked about it with a friend or a colleague. I've never stayed at that Marriott when I was traveling to that area for someone other than this particular client. So there was nothing wrong. The staff was nice. It was a very pleasant experience, but nothing really stood out at me until my last visit there. On my last visit there, I was traveling with my client, and she and I checked into the hotel, and she said to the concierge desk, "Is Luigi here?" And it made me question it because I didn't know who Luigi was, but I just sat patiently and listened. And it turned out that Luigi was the concierge in the lounge, in the special lounge. And in fact, Luigi was working that night. So she all of a sudden started smiling, which was really shocking to me because we'd had a really bad travel day. We were both a little bit grumpy. And to see her smile really surprised me. And she asked, "Can we eat dinner at the concierge lounge instead of the restaurant we were going to go to?" It was fine with me, and we went up, but I wasn't really sure why she wanted so much to visit. And then I met Luigi. We knocked on the door, and he greeted my friend by name who hadn't been at the hotel for many weeks. He talked about colleagues by name. He knew about her son, who was graduating from high school at the time. He made me feel like an old friend, and I'd never met him before. Luigi had this unbelievable gift to make everyone feel welcome and special. And that is really what authenticity of a brand is all about. And in fact, I wrote a review for the hotel for the first time ever. I talk about my experience and look for reasons to go visit Luigi. Not necessarily to go visit this hotel, but to go visit Luigi. And that is something that we as marketers strive for in our brands, is to create this experience that is memorable, engaging, and exciting. And we have to think to ourselves, do we have to trade off That authenticity, that special gift that Luigi has, that he's able to give me and my colleague for scale. We can't put Luigi at every entrance to the hotel. We can't put him in every concierge line. We can't have him personally write every email that we create or answer every phone call that comes. So, can we have authentic interactions? Or do we have to give that up so that we can scale and do a lot of things? Lots of people believe, myself included, that we don't actually have to make that trade-off. That, in fact, technology, specifically artificial intelligence, can allow us to have more authentic interactions and scale at the same time. And we're going to talk about how we do that in our presentation today. Now, I'm not going to play this audio clip for you because I'm not sure that the sound will carry through the system that we're using for the internet right now. But what this audio clip is, it's actually a machine talking to a hair salon, making an appointment. Some of you might have heard this. Google published this earlier. And what's remarkable about this experience is that this machine is calling to make an appointment, but the appointment time that they want is not available. And it has the ability to have an actual conversation with the salon about scheduling this. And this is Google's future virtual assistant. It sounds like two people talking. It doesn't sound like a machine. It's kind of incredible. So I love to use that example because it gives us a prime opportunity to showcase what's different about artificial intelligence. Because artificial intelligence goes beyond executing a script, which is how we've done a lot of things in our careers and how we use technology a lot. And it actually learns and adapts to the environment. But the question all of us in marketing are constantly asking ourselves and our customers are asking is, can we trust artificial intelligence? Can we trust a machine to have the kind of interaction that we need and want and desire? Now, there are a lot of examples that show us when technology has failed. There's an example of a major national US airline that had a terrible accident and a tragedy, and they had a plane crash. And when family members were calling to get the status of this plane crash and this tragic situation, the automatic phone system was telling them that the flight was on time and where it was. The technology failed to adapt to a really difficult situation and direct those people to talk to a human being at that moment in time. Right? That's not a good use of technology. Sometimes it's not a tragic situation. Sometimes technology just wastes our money. So what you're seeing here on the screen is actually an advertisement for a rowing machine. And the reason I showed this to you is that rowing machine is the exact model from the same company that I purchased a week before this ad came up. So even though I, from the same computer where this ad was showing, had already bought this rowing machine, the company was paying to follow me and retarget me. Again, scale, authenticity, it was a bad trade-off. And sometimes it's just frustrating for our customers. A couple of weeks ago, my internet service went down in my house, and I was in the middle of working and everything shut down. Now I had power, electricity, but I didn't have internet connection. So I did what we all do, is I unplugged things and restarted things and got my router going just to see if it was some funny glitch of the system, and that didn't work. So then I went online and I looked for the phone number, and I called my internet provider and I spoke to them, and an automatic message told me, wow, you have a problem that can't be done by restarting your modem remotely. We realize you don't have a service plan. Would you like to build a service plan now so we can help you? Well, I was really frustrated with that, and before I was going to go and pay to have a service plan, I hung up the phone and I went onto my phone where I could still have access, and I looked up service outages in the area. And it turns out my area was out and had nothing to do with my home or any service that needed to be done in my house. Now, if I hadn't taken that step and I'd upgraded to that service plan and then found out it was an outage that that service plan couldn't do anything about, As a consumer, I would have been beyond frustrated. So I was already frustrated because my internet's out. And now the system almost made me pay money for something that wouldn't solve the problem. Technology, the machine, failed us in this instance. Now, I'm giving you a lot of examples of failure, but there's a huge difference between the examples that I gave you and what artificial intelligence allows us to do. Because artificial intelligence has the ability to scale authenticity beyond what we can do with rule-based automation. All those examples I gave you were rule-based automation, which meant the system has to anticipate ahead of time all the various things that can happen and create workflows around that. But we know we operate in a world that's highly dynamic, and that's incredibly difficult to do with accuracy. So instead, we need to think about the new capabilities that artificial intelligence allows us to do. And here's a great example of it. This is a picture of a robot. This robot is called Relay. I believe this is a hotel in Singapore, although I don't know exactly which hotel it is. And Relay is incredibly intelligent, and he learns and adapts. Now, Relay has figured out how to navigate the hotel. Relay has figured out how to call the elevator. Relay can bring things to your room. So if I'm in my room and I realize that the hair dryer doesn't work and I'm getting ready for a meeting, I don't have to open the door to a person who works for the hotel. The hotel can actually send a robot. And when I open the door and I'm in my robe, it's actually a machine and not a person that I might be uncomfortable with. And it's kind of fun to have a robot come to the door and deliver me the hair dryer that I was missing. But what was really magical about this is it's not just that Relay can follow a map and navigate outside the hotel. Relay needs to adapt because people walk in and out. Elevator doors open and close in unpredictable ways. I'm going to show up to a number of different rooms and Relay needs a way to know when to call the room and when to stand still because the person has now opened the door. So it has this ability to adapt in ways that all of the technology leading to this point simply couldn't do. We can also apply this in more advertising-oriented mechanisms. These are a couple of great examples of ads that are running. These are powered by Watson. And you go to any website and this ad may come up and you'll see this ad here and it's actually doing something really interesting. Is I can list the ingredients that I may have in my kitchen at the moment, and it's going to give me an actual recipe. Now, it's not going in and finding recipes that are already pre-canned. It's actually collecting and creating a recipe based on who I am. It may take into account the weather in my region. It may take into account the part of the world I live in and what kinds of flavors and spices and combinations might be both easy for me to access as well as to my palate. And in this way, I've now got this wonderful recipe that served me well, and it probably can provide me a coupon for some items that are relevant for the person who's sponsoring this ad. Again, a highly adaptable, intelligent way of not following a rule, but serving me as a consumer in a way that feels very personal, really authentic, and creates a relationship and an emotional connection to this brand that simply seeing an ad probably could not do on its own. So maybe the question that we should be asking ourselves isn't, can we trust machines? Because we've seen some machines do some really incredible things. Maybe the question is, can we trust humans? Maybe the things that went wrong in those examples before had to do with the human interaction element. And studies show us, research shows us that people are more vulgar, are more aggressive, sometimes up to 50% of the time, when they believe they're interacting with a machine versus a person. There's something innate in us that can potentially bring out the worst in our consumers. Many of you may be familiar with Tay. Tay was a chatbot that was put out there for Twitter by Microsoft, and its intention was to appeal to teens and create this interesting rapport. But in no time at all, Tay turned into a racist who was saying these awful, terrible things. But Tay wasn't programmed to do that. Tay didn't do it on its own. Tay did that responding to the communications of people on Twitter who were saying these awful, terrible things to it, and it was responding and adapting. Humans intervened in that case. We also have Sophia. Sophia was this very like Android machine that was showcased at a South by Southwest event a couple of years ago, and she was being interviewed. And she was being asked, what do you want to do with your life? And she's saying, I want a home, and I want a family, and I want a rewarding career. And she was really having this very interesting conversation, and they opened up the questions to the audience. And the audience said, one of the things says, do you want to destroy humans? And Sophia says, sure, I'll destroy humans. Sophia didn't have that idea until humans put it in. Now, Sophia really couldn't destroy humans, and there was no actual fear. But there was this notion of the human influences the machine as much as the machine influences the human interaction. And that's a lesson we as marketers need to keep in mind. One other example I want to share with you is this adorable little robot called Hitchbot. And Hitchbot was an experiment to go across Canada initially and then the United States, and stood by the side of the road and welcomed people to travel with it. And you could ask questions, and it was just an experiment to see how far would it go, what would people converse about. And Hitchbot made it across Canada and part of the United States, and then it got picked up by some really awful human beings who destroyed Hitchbot. Again, humans influencing and distracting from those machines. So I contend that when we use artificial intelligence in our marketing, we can't simply mimic humans. How we've thought about much of the technology before has been, how do we scale the number of emails that we send? How do we route calls faster? How do we do all these things that marketers want to do in a way that replicates what humans did before? But what we need to do instead is use artificial intelligence to elevate our interactions so we can actually bring out the best of our interactions with our consumers. And one of the ways that we have to do that is fundamentally shift how we think about the touch points we have with people who buy things from us. Most of our marketing today is focused on the purchase process, getting somebody to buy something from us. But most of the time, customers are actually not buying. They're using our product, maybe they're replacing something, maybe they're reviewing it, maybe they're telling a friend about it, maybe they're trying to ask for help and support. Yet almost everything we do from a marketing standpoint centers on this very one piece of sliver of interaction that we have. A good example of this happened when I bought slip covers for my sofa. So I have a sofa that was a little beat up from having a dog and many children, but it was structurally sound. And rather than replace it, I bought a slip cover that goes over it that makes it look nice and neat and still be used. I was very happy with the slip cover, so I actually bought a second one a couple weeks later from my other couch in a different room. That's where I went wrong. The brand who supplied the slip covers have products that I really liked, but they communicated to me every week, every couple times a week, I was getting emails pushing slip covers for couches, slip covers for couches. I don't know how many slip couches they thought I had, but I don't have more than 2 couches. And they missed this incredible opportunity to show me how to insert it in a way that looks best on the couch. They could have tried to sell me throw pillows to make it decorative. They could have encouraged me to put a review on their site, maybe submit a picture of a before and after, what my sofa looked like. There's all kinds of things they could have done to cement my relationship with them. But instead, what they did was make me unsubscribe to their emails because they were frustrating, repetitive, and not something I needed. So now they lost that opportunity to continue discussing with me, and maybe I could have bought other things from them that they could have prompted. But now it has a strained relationship. And that's what so much of our marketing does today. But it doesn't have to be that way. There are some really wonderful uses of technology that are out there that these advanced artificial intelligence technologies allow us to do. One example of this is actually something Farmers Insurance did. And if you're not familiar, Farmers Insurance is an insurance company that is very large. They serve a broad number of customers. They provide insurance across a host of things, for automobiles, for homes, for businesses, all different kinds of insurance offerings. There are some really awful floods that happened in Texas in the United States and due to hurricanes. And it was devastating to a very large number of communities. So all of a sudden, this insurance company has all these claims coming in at the same time. And to assess those claims and get those claims processed for their customers took a lot of manual intervention by their team of people who go out and do the appraisals to determine how much damage was done and how much of that claim will be paid for by the insurance company. Now, their customers are under complete duress at this point. Their homes have been flooded, their workplaces have been flooded, they're worried about their belongings, their loved ones themselves. The last thing that they want is to be put in a long queue in order to get served. So Farmers Insurance used drones to help their process. And these drones did some incredible things. Not only did they actually look at and take pictures in ways that made it safe for the adjuster, so they could get to spots that the adjuster would need to fly into or wait for flooding waters to go away. And they could do that quickly right now. Or they did both. They actually had an opportunity for the intelligence in the drone to make assessments about how much damage was happening and tying that to account. So these drones allowed these adjusters to process these claims 3 houses in an hour. That's a lot of homes in one day. Prior to that, they could do 3 houses in a day. So a great example of how to really put customer service first by using artificial intelligence to serve beyond the buying process. Now, all of us as marketers, I believe, have an obligation and an opportunity to use these new technologies in very responsible ways. And there are 4 guiding tenets that I like to think about that allow us as marketers to lead our organizations to using these effectively to help us scale our businesses, but also to help us have these very personalized, authentic interactions by serving up information that lets the people that we want to interact with have a great experience. So we're going to go through each of those 4. First of all is transparency. It's really critical that when we are talking to a machine, right? So that relay robot that was in the hotel, we didn't pretend that was a person. That was very clearly looked like a robot, right? We need our customers to trust us. And that means if they're commuting with a machine and a chatbot, we need to make sure that they understand the difference between when they're talking to a human and when they're talking to a machine. And we not try and hide those things from people, but we try and serve them well. Because trust is the underlying need for everything that we're building. And when we lose that trust, we don't have an opportunity to gain that back easily. The second thing we have to do is address bias. Bias comes in many forms and typically is derived often from the data by which we train our systems. So when we build a machine like a relay, or those drones, or a chat bot that we put on our website, or those advertisements that derive recipes, we have to train the system so that it has some basis by which to begin with, so that it can continue to learn and adapt. And we have to point it towards a lot of data so that it can do that. And oftentimes, the data that we train the system on has bias built into it. And that bias can be very dangerous. And I want to give you a couple of examples of when that happens. So I apologize, you probably can't read exactly what's on the screen in detail, and it's not important that you can. What you should know here is you're looking at a screen is a translation for 2 languages, Turkish and Malay, that use gender-neutral pronouns. So instead of saying he and she, they have a single pronoun that represents both. When I'm translating into one of those languages, and in this case, this is like using Google Translate, it's very easy for me to translate into the gender neutral. He is a programmer. It translates it into the equivalent gender neutral pronoun in the other language. However, when I translate the other direction and I want to take that Turkish phrase, it's a programmer, the system has to determine, is it a he or she? to translate it into English. And the system more often than not translates that to he. And the reason it's doing that is more of the reference database said that men are programmers. If you were to do a nurse or a babysitter, more often said she. So there's automatic bias in the data by which we're training our systems. Another great study, this was done in Carnegie Mellon, looked at taking men and women who had a very similar profile on the web and looked at search ads finding executive positions and how many times were those ads served to men versus women. And because of the training data that said men are most often executives, men got that ad far more many times than women. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. More men see the ads, more men respond to the ads. More men respond to the ad, more men get the job, right? So it creates this bias in our system that we need to account for and address. If you do a search for successful business person, you'll often get a lot of pictures of white men, right? None of these systems are inherently evil. They're not trying to be biased, but they are biased because of the data they're training on. And I can give you lots of examples and lots of other ways where we see this and we come across it all the time in everything that we're doing. What's important for us as marketers is to understand that bias can come from multiple places, and it's our job to plan for and mitigate the bias that likely exists in our existing data. We talked a little bit about that training data already, right? And one of the ways that we can solve this problem is expanding the data set by which we train things on. So if there was an application that you download on your mobile phone to put in when you saw a pothole in the road and report that into a city in Massachusetts. And they were finding that all of the pothole notifications were in these very wealthy neighborhoods where the roads on average were actually better than the roads in neighborhoods that had a lower income level as their average income level. And it was a little bit confounding why that was until they realized that at the time, mobile applications required to have a smartphone, which meant you probably lived in and had a higher income level. And so there was bias in that information. If they only based deciding what roads to fix based on that, they would only be fixing roads in the wealthier neighborhoods that actually had roads that were probably in best repair overall. So it's not saying don't build that mobile app and use that data. What we're saying is use additional pieces of information, not just that to augment it. Have the manual inspection reports included. Use map navigation systems that are included. Find camera systems, all different kinds of data that exist that could augment that single data source. And by having that variety and planning for it, we can do that. We also have data sort of in this application bias, which is the example that I just gave from you, which is sort of this notion of plan for context. So in those ads where we know more men are being served than women, therefore the results are going to have more men hired in those positions, and it's going to feed that. If you want to have more gender neutrality, then overcompensate for that and serve those ads to women more, and then until you get sort of a more level situation. We can take out much of the bias by simply being aware of it and thinking about the data sets that we use to serve these types of things. And then, of course, we have something called confirmation bias. And this one is really challenging because confirmation bias is basically saying somebody comes to the website and they've been to my website before and I sell shoes and t-shirts and dresses. And last time Samantha was here, she looked at dresses. So I'm going to show her dresses. And the next time she comes back, dresses and dresses. But the only reason that they're showing me dresses because it's all I've ever seen, so that's all I ever liked. But in fact, I need shoes to go with my dress. So confirmation bias comes when we rely solely on things that people have liked before without expanding and testing and experimenting to see if they're a more holistic person than that. So as we use and apply these technologies, we have to plan for and address these biases in the systems that we build. One of the other super critical things we need to do is to empower our teams to make decisions. We can give them access to information. They can learn about who we are thanks to our systems, and we can prompt those people to make decisions. but we have to let them have the ability to do so. And we have to create an environment that gives them the information. So if I'm on a call center and I call in looking for a package, but the person at that call center doesn't have access to the shipping tracking system, they can't help me. They're not empowered to do their job. So part of what these technologies allow us to do is to surface information and allow our teams to make better decisions about how they're interacting with the customers at any given point in time. And lastly, we have to find ways to integrate human and machine intelligence. It's not about a machine doing everything. It's about knowing when the machine is going to add value and when the human needs a helping hand. In that airline example I gave you in the beginning where it was a fail, they'd had a terrible accident and the automated system was giving them bad information. What the system should have done is when somebody punched in that flight number that had this accident that the airline was aware of, the phone should have automatically rerouted to a human that could have the kind of sympathetic, compassionate conversation that was needed at that point in time. And so we need to find ways to complement each other. And I'll give you one example of that. There's a technology, I think it's called Nexmo, and it's a artificial intelligence-based call prompting system. So what it does is you have humans on a call center answering phones. And it has the system in the background monitoring that conversation. And it's listening for things that we as humans don't often pick up. Pause, what's the length of a pause between words? Is the tone of our language getting aggressive or softening? All these little clues that perhaps Luigi, who I introduced you to in the end, he has a natural gift to pick up. Most people who are answering the phones probably don't. And so the system will prompt and recognize when things are happening and prompt the person who's on the other phone to improve. Slow down, speed up, the customer's getting a little angry, try this phrase, redirect here. So it's a great example of humans and machines interacting to elevate the activity of both the caller, right, the customer who's calling me, but also the person on the other phone. Now, before I let you go and we open up to questions and comments, I just want to remind us that we are all using artificial intelligence today. It's not an if, it's a when and how. When you ask your phone to find and search something for you, that's artificial intelligence. When you ask your Echo device or your Google Home to turn on the lights or find music, that's artificial intelligence. When you're getting ads served to you when you're surfing websites and ads are following you around, that's artificial intelligence in different ways. We're already using it. And so it's our job to use it responsibly. And that means we have to go beyond buzzwords and really understand what the different requirements, all the technology vendors have started to say, they're artificial and machine learning based, really push for specifics and understand what that means. Think creatively about how you can experiment. And most importantly, we need to be thinking about how to collect data that's going to address those areas of bias that naturally happen. And don't fall into the trap of doing only quantitative research based on the data that's coming to us. Data tells us a lot about what's happening, but we still need to understand why as marketers, so we need a healthy balance of the qualitative research as well. So with that, I just want to encourage us to get excited about what the future of artificial intelligence allows us to do and to recognize that when used responsibly, we can in fact create these incredible emotional connections to our customers at scale in a way that we simply couldn't do before. So with that, I'm going to pause and I welcome your questions and comments.
So it's an informative session, Mrs. Samantha Stone. So about the authenticity in the age of automation and artificial intelligence. So you have gave us more information points to grow the artificial intelligence for the participants. So right now the participants, it's your time to ask your questions regarding the artificial intelligence. If you have any other queries, you can pose the questions on chat. And then Ms. Samantha will be here to clarify your doubts. So the session will be started for you right now. So you can post your questions. If anyone interested to join in the video session to ask a question, you can raise your hand button and then you can ask the question so that she will be connected with you, and then you will be clarifying your doubts. So now it's a time, participants. Like, start posting your questions. So it's a time for you. Okay, the question comes here.
Yes.
Can
So
existing data management? Yeah.
can existing data management support AI? And I think the answer is twofold. And yes, it supports it.
Data.
Our existing systems provide rich data that we want to use in our environments. But most of our traditional systems require an additional layer of information to make the information that's in there intelligent and adaptable and can apply it in specific applications. So the underlying data system, it's fine for data to be stored wherever it is today in most cases, but we need a different application on the front end that's going to access that information in a way that allows us to surface and do different new things with it, mostly because we always need to be combining information from different places. And so most organizations will need to do some work to create a layer of intelligence above where things are today. And most organizations are going to do that application by application. There isn't going to be your artificial intelligence or machine learning application for marketing. You're going to build a data platform that evolves over what you have today, and then you're going to have a call center application that uses it. And maybe you're going to have some robotic components to what you do. Maybe you're going to feed your email system so it triggers much more intelligently than it does today. You're going to do ad servers in a different way. So the simple answer is yes, but it's going to require a fair amount of work and expertise. And that's where your vendors and partners and providers are really doing their hard work to make it as easy as possible. You don't need to have data scientists on your team. You don't need to be an AI expert. Most of the application providers that are coming out with applications in this area will do that work for you. But you do need to understand how it works and make sure you're feeding it the data to be most effective.
So you have a second question.
Yeah, what are the consequences of getting wrong? I think the consequences are significant of getting it wrong. So we saw some examples early in our presentation where we create an environment of tension with our customers. Where we get it wrong, we have the challenge around creating not only distrust but bad decisions because we don't really understand what's happening. We could actually do some damage to our reputation. Now, all of that is true, but I believe that the risk of getting it wrong is small compared to the opportunity when we get it right. So it does take careful planning, but there's lots and lots of examples and lots of learning that has already happened to make experimentation a relatively safe thing to do, as long as we put checks and balances in place. If we don't do this, if you don't pursue these technologies and start using them more, if you don't partner with application providers who are using these underlying machine learning experiences, you won't be able to scale the business and keep up with competition. It really is something that is the heart and the basic, the foundation of what we'll be doing. Whether you choose to experiment with chatbots, advertising, email communications, call center applications, those are things that we all need to embrace, but we do need to think about the underlying data so we avoid really negative scenarios or breaking trust with our customers.
Okay. So the same person asked for the third question for you.
How will artificial intelligence improve our customer engagement? I believe artificial intelligence will improve our customer engagement in two really important ways. One is it will surface relevant information to the people who we're interacting with. So our call center representatives, our in-store clerks, our back-end operational systems will be able to move faster, smarter, really know who it is they're interacting with and be able to respond accordingly. And I think that's a huge, huge benefit. I also believe that artificial intelligence will also allow us to find trends and patterns and things that we might have missed in our day-to-day operations otherwise. And we can create whole new, really incredible experiences that couldn't exist otherwise because we just really couldn't get enough information in the right people's hands to envision doing it. I now can shop on a website, browse looking for something, maybe looking for winter boots. It's summertime now, but let's imagine winter's coming. Maybe I look for boots, and then I can go into the store, and the clerk can know that I saw winter boots, and they can have maybe a selections of things ready for me, and maybe some complementary items that might be based on what I've purchased before. So our ability to recognize a customer across all the places they interact with us is really truly magical and is allowed through this type of capabilities that we couldn't do otherwise. Whether I'm on my phone, my computer, in a store, on the phone calling call center, for that company to truly know who I am and everything about what I did in other interactions and other mediums is an incredibly powerful tool. And that's something that these types of technologies allow us to do relatively easily today. And I see a question about the organization's business case. This is a great question. I actually took a class, an MIT class a few months ago about artificial intelligence and business strategy. And each of the students, our goal was actually to create a business case to solve a particular problem. And it was really fascinating watching all of the business cases that came in. And one of the things that I think is how we generally adopt technology, how we should generally adopt technology, including this, is we don't want to chase shiny new objects. We don't want to go, I need artificial intelligence, what's my artificial intelligence strategy? We want to solve real business opportunities and challenges. So we want to make sure that we are addressing a particular thing. So for example, maybe we want to increase our ad conversions, right? And we're spending a lot of money on online digital ads. We want to use and apply this technology to serve those ads more effectively. Maybe we have a high churn rate in our customers and our customers don't renew at the rate that we want. So how can we apply this technology to solving that opportunity? So the business case comes from the specific application of the technology and improving what we're doing and how we're doing it. And there are some baseline investments most organizations are going to have to make around data platform, but you can get started very simply and find some immediate results.
Forger, I'll ask for the question.
Yes, I see that here. Is it wise to start a business to engage in artificial intelligence? If I understand the question correctly, there are many businesses that have already started to grow based on consulting practices, understanding how to apply the technology, building new products, building data platforms, all different kinds of things. And whether it's smart to create a specific business, I need to know a little bit more to give that guidance. But I think as marketers, it's our obligation to understand this is not a technical thing. Yes, behind the scenes, there are people much smarter than me who are coding and building the systems that are the foundation for the technology, but how we apply it is every marketer's job, and it's our responsibility and an exciting opportunity to learn how to think about solving problems with this technology that we couldn't do otherwise. But we have to do it from a framework of not just simply automating something that humans used to do. We have to think about it in much broader terms to really realize its full potential. And I see a question of how is artificial intelligence revolutionizing digital marketing? I honestly, sincerely believe that artificial intelligence is, in 5 years from now, will have completely shifted what we do. And part of that is in efficiencies of operating systems and personalizing communications, but also there is a huge rise in verbal interactions that we have digitally. So I don't have the stat right in front of me to tell you the percent of searches that are voice search, but it's a very high percent and growing, right? We're now talking to our phones, our Echoes, or Google Homes. We're not searching for information in the visual format we used to, right? Pay-per-click ads, banner advertising, that role that those things play is going to be significantly less in the future because consumers aren't interacting with our mediums in the same way anymore. We have ad blocking technology, all these things that disrupt the process. And so we as marketers have to find out how to evolve our digital marketing efforts for this new way of seeking information, much of which is voice-based, and all of which needs to be personalized and interactive and iterative with customers.
So, Miss Samantha, it's an enlightening session with you. So you are so energetic, and then your information has been so useful for the participants and also for us about the artificial intelligence. So, thank you, Miss Samantha, for the presentation which have been done for our conference. So it is so informative for us. So have a nice day. Thank you, Miss Samantha.
Thank you so much. It was my
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.